and welcome to my channel. I had a question from a subscriber the other day about doing ink and watercolour drawings and little sketches and things, and not putting too much watercolour on, but just putting a little touch on just to lift the drawing. So I thought I would do the reindeer as a subject today because we're into December, but I just wanted to talk about just adding a tiny touch of colour to an ink drawing just to give it that little lift. So the paper that I'm using is a mixed media paper. I've not got a watercolour paper today because we're only going to be putting a tiny touch on, and this is something you can do in your sketchbooks when you've been out and about sketching with a pen or a pencil and you get back into the studio and you've got your paints there. You might want to just add a little touch of colour here and there. So what I'm going to do, I'm sort of doing it a bit in reverse. I'm going to do that little bit of colour now onto this one that's finished, and I've videoed myself doing the drawing, and I'll put that at the end. So I did find it quite difficult doing a reindeer. I mean, he's not perfect by any means, because when I'm usually doing animal sketches, I sketch animals that I know. So I've done quite a lot of red deer sketches, and of course we see red deer here, and I also do cows. We've got our own cows here, and I do things like horses. And when you're familiar with their anatomy, so you know when you're drawing it if something doesn't look right. I'm not familiar with a reindeer's anatomy, so I did find it difficult making it, you know, look like a reindeer. To me, they look quite moosey, the reindeers. They've got a much wider face around here than a red deer would have. So, and the feet are quite different as well, actually. So those are little things to look at. Look at the difference in the anatomy between the British wildlife, the red deer that we draw, and the reindeer. They're quite different. Their antlers are different and everything. So you really need to look and observe. Okay, so that's enough about the drawing really. So we're just going to talk about putting the watercolour on. So the pen I used was the Faber Castell Pitt pen, and that one was a small. So I just used the one size. Okay, so I'm not going to wet the paper. Like I said, it's a mixed media paper and I don't want to put loads of water on it. I'm just going to make some colours up. And the first colour I'm going to put on, just to lift him a bit, I'm presuming it's a him, is some yellow, and I'm using the raw sienna for that. And that's enough. So you can see there we've got very little pigment and water in there, just a tiny touch. And there are some sort of yellowy colours in his fur and where the light's touching his antlers. So if you use one of your natural a yellow ochre or a sienna rather than something like a cadmium, which is going to look a little bit unnatural, unless of course you want to make him sort of a bit blingy and different. So while you're doing this, make sure you leave some of the paper white. Don't need to be covering the whole lot up, especially down here. He's quite light down here. And then I'm going to leave that's enough yellow. So we'll go on to our next colour. And I want something a little bit darker, but I'm not going to go as dark as he perhaps is in reality. Like I say, we'll just sort of leave the drawing showing nicely. So I've got a little bit of burnt umber, and again I haven't made lots up, and so I'm just going to go where he's darker now, at the top of his nose here. You can see that's running into the yellow there. That doesn't matter, let that run into the yellow. So the main thing is when you're doing this is your yellow and your brown should be a similar consistency, so when they're running into each other they're not going to cause what we call cauliflowers. So on his antlers it's mostly where it's in the shade that it's darker. And of course your colour choices are up to you. Like I say, you might want to make it completely, you might want to unrealistic, you might want to give him purple antlers or pink antlers even. Just, it's not so much about the colour, it's about the amount that we're putting on and showing you how you can do it quite, keep it very, very simple and not overdo it. At the same time following some of those shapes that you did with your pen to get things like the eye socket there. Again, his nose is a bit of a funny one because I'm not familiar with how the noses are, but it's quite dark all the way down there. So I'm going to let that dark colour, and under here, obviously under here it's in the shadow anyway. And I'm going to leave that, that's enough of the brown. And then the last thing is to put his helter in, and I'm actually going to give him a brightly coloured helter because it'll just lift the whole thing up. So let's go for a nice bright Christmassy red. You might like at this point to wait for it to dry so that it doesn't run into, you know, same as like there. I'm just going to try and not touch that, but I might touch it. And again, it doesn't matter because that's sort of the effect you're going for. It's a very loose and free little touch of colour rather than a perfect painting. Okay, so, and that is enough. I'm not going to do any more to him. You can see there where it's running. Just lift that out carefully whilst it's wet, but it doesn't really matter. It's not running a lot and it's just going to look as if you know, you did it as a quick little sketch, which was the effect that you're sort of wanting to go for. Okay, so whether you did a background or not, I'm not sure. I think it looks quite nice on the white, and the idea was just to keep it simple, so I think we will leave it white. Okay, so like I say, I'll pop the next bit of the video will be the drawing speeded up, the actual ink drawing, so you can see how I did that. But that is enough for the actual colour, so just 3 colours and just adding that little touch. And like I say, if you want to make him blingy and do him in purples and pinks or whatever, then that's entirely up to you. Okay, so let me know how you get on with that in the comments below and what you think of that, and if you'd like me to do any more of these quick little sketches. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.